we should be live. Welcome everybody to another live stream repair. Today we've got 4 HomePods in for repair. Patrick sent 2 of them in, but all 4 of them have the same reported symptom of no power. Kind of a strange coincidence. Yesterday we get 3 HomePods all with no base, and today we get 4 HomePods all with no power. But you know, you live long enough to see stuff like that and you stop believing in coincidences. Anyways, let's see here. First up is Myoung. Hold on here. Let me update that name. There we go. Let me make sure the video description's correct too. Yes, it is. All right. Let's get Myoung's opened up here, and we'll dive right in. Come on. There we go. All right. Ourselves a nicely packed HomePod in here. And here's our boy, or girl. Not really sure. Base. Okay, so Myoung here has reported that it's got no power, so we're going to start off just by double checking our symptoms here. Get it connected to some power. See what kind of power draw it's pulling from the wall. We can take our guesses as to what's going on, and then we'll take it apart. Power has been supplied. We've got no response, so symptoms match their description, and we've got about 4 watts of power draw at the wall according to our kilowatt meter there. So most likely, based on that amount of power draw there, we've got a shorted Schottky barrier diode on the amplifier board. So let's tear this down and do a little bit of diagnosis on that board from the inside. Gotta get our drink out too. We've got some UCC coffee today. That's the good stuff. All right, let's begin. Start, of course, by wedging our spudger under that top plastic. Just going to work all the way around that a few times until it just pops off all by itself. We don't want to use this to actually pry anything. We're simply using this to cut that adhesive. If we were to try to use this to pry this layer off, then what would likely happen is we would end up cracking it or bending it or doing some sort of damage to it. So instead, what you want to do is just use this tool to cut that adhesive and just keep going around until it pops off all on its own. Just like that. I've heard a couple other people suggest like dental floss or fishing line to cut through and pull this off. I've had some people say that they use credit cards, but this is always my go-to. If you're careful with it and you know what you're doing, this one's the best in my opinion, because you got the nice grippy handle to give yourself enough leverage to cut through that adhesive real quick and easy. Alright, we're going to get our T6, the only size screwdriver we're going to need for all of our repairs today, and get this taken off our display here. Great, then we can get our spudger back here, wedge that under our display, and then we're going to use a plastic tool to actually go under that and pry this off. Easy peasy. Frame out, logic board out, get our base, put the base on the base, and we got double base. Detach that ribbon cable from the top of the basket here. Very nice. Let's get those screws for the basket exposed. Four HomePods with no power. Will they all be the same? Will they all have the same shorted diode on the amplifier? Based on personal experience and the numbers that I've got so far, I'm going to go ahead and say most likely yes. Hey Tim, fancy seeing you here. All right. Bullocks. Where's my flathead? Here we go. It's time for the pry. Very nice. Satisfying sounds. It might sound like things are breaking, but rest assured that is just the sweet sound of that silicone glue giving up. And even then, if you accidentally crack this basket while taking it off, you need not worry, because this basket does nothing to actually do any sealing or have any impact on the actual sound of the speaker here. It's more just to hold the logic board and the top of the HomePod together and give the mesh something to wrap around. So if you crack your basket prying it off, go ahead and just reuse it. It's all good. Almost got it. Yeah. Sheesh. That one wanted to put up a fight. Oh, I had somebody asking me about not using any glue to put this back on. And kind of goes along with what I just said a minute ago. This has nothing to do with actually sealing anything up or what have you. So if you end up taking all of your glue off before you go to reassemble this, it's not going to impact anything. And if you screw it down right, it's not going to cause any rattling either. So I don't replace or re-glue. I do not re-glue these baskets down for those reasons, as well as, well, considering the possibility of somebody else in the future wanting to take it apart themselves, I want to keep it easy for them. So Tim asked, what did iFixit give this thing for a repairability score? Yeah, they scored it. I think they gave it a 1 out of 10. Let's check here. Try to share my screen here. Yeah, so they gave it a repairability score of 1 out of 10. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, I would probably give that maybe a 2 or 3 out of 10. Granted, I haven't, I haven't seen as many electronics as iFixit probably has, so. And I've also taken apart more than 200 of these by now, so maybe I'm a little jaded and maybe a bit of a masochist. But in any case, to me, these are entirely repairable. Alright, let's get that subwoofer pulled out. That's true. I would agree with that. I am a bit more of a prosumer than a consumer. Got to think about it from the perspective of somebody who likely only has just a flathead or a Phillips screwdriver kicking around in their drawer, and if that's all you got, then Don't even think about it. But if you've got the right tools and you've got patience, it is totally doable. My very first HomePod that I ever took apart, it took me a few hours, but I didn't break anything doing it. I didn't even actually have a hot air station. What I ended up doing to replace the diode, it was ugly, but I ended up taking a knife and just stabbing the diode into pieces, and then taking my soldering iron and wicking off the rest of the bits that were still stuck onto the PCB. And well, after that, I decided right then and there that I was going to get a hot air rework station to make it significantly easier for me. But from a repair shop's perspective, this should be totally doable. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, you bugger. Put that back in there. Reason why I keep the screws in this plastic ring here, unlike every other step where I just take the screws out and put them to the side, if you look real close, these screws have a little gasket on them, and it's real easy to lose that. Granted, I'll show you guys. I've got screws out the wazoo, so I don't need to worry about bending or losing any. But kind of the whole mantra with the channel here is reusing as much as you can. So that's why I just keep them in that plastic ring there so you don't lose any of it. Alright, let's get that power supply out of the way. I don't really have any reason to suspect it's the power supply based on the power draw. Usually if the power supply gives out, it's most often actually the fuse in there that blows, and in which case you wouldn't see any power being drawn at the wall. But we see power being drawn, so we usually see the shorted diode in that case. Alright, all 14 screws are out. We got our amplifier. We'll set that shell to the side. We don't really need it for anything now. And here's our main attraction, our amplifier board. Let's just do a quick visual inspection all around. Make sure there isn't any obvious problems, and then we'll jump right into a quick diagnosis and then do our repairs. And everything looks to be in great condition here, just as I expect. So let's get up close and take a look at that main culprit there, our 60 volt 5 amp Schottky barrier diode. And what do you know, it's got a date code on there of 1748K. So let's get that pulled off and replace it. Oh, actually, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's go ahead and diagnose really quick and just make sure that that diode is in fact shorted out. We're going to get our multimeter, put that into continuity test mode. So whenever it detects continuity or a complete circuit with no resistance, the multimeter will beep. Depending on the part that you're testing, obviously in some parts you're going to want to see continuity, and in other parts you do not want to see continuity. Where you see continuity in a part that you don't want to, usually that indicates that the part that you're testing is shorted out. In this case, this specific type of diode here, we know that it's normally in good working condition not supposed to have continuity. So if we do see continuity through this part, then we'll know most likely that this diode is in fact shorted out. And to do that, it doesn't matter which lead you put, but go ahead and just take one of them and stick it on the big pin on the bottom there. And then we're going to take our other probe and we're going to test each of those two tiny pins on the top. Yep. Yes, indeed. So testing both of those pins there, the diode appears shorted through and through. So let's get that pulled off and replace it with a new good diode. There we go. Dead diode be gone. Stick that in the dead pile. Break out a brand new diode. If you're curious what part numbers I use, head over to my website nixfix.com. Click on common issues. Find your common issue. And then I've got steps on how I do the same diagnosis and repair that I do here on the stream, as well as the exact part numbers that I use for these repairs. So let's get that diode prepped. I'm going to stick some flux on there. Going to get some flux on our board there too. And then we're going to put some fresh solder onto that diode and then put it onto our board. This gives us a nice quality, long-lasting connection from the diode to the board there, instead of just relying on whatever solder's left over on the board. Alright, That's all there is to it. Let's give this board just a chance here to cool off real fast, and then we'll see if it powers on. Lock that ribbon cable into place. Get ourselves a logic board with display. Plug the subwoofer in so we can test for any DC offset, assuming this powers on. Gonna connect our multimeter in DC millivolts mode to that subwoofer. So again, if it powers on, then we can check and see if the amplifier is generating any DC voltage on the subwoofer. And alright, yeah, let's plug it into some power and see what happens. I heard the classic capacitor charge sound, the high-pitched squeal, so I have high hopes. Yeah, it's powering on. Alright, so now that we know that the board powers on, let's go ahead and check for any DC offset. And it's looking pretty clean at about 1 to 2 millivolts of DC voltage. That is perfectly acceptable. As long as we see this number stay below around 50 millivolts, that is totally good. If this number were larger than 50 millivolts, that's when I would go ahead and replace the filtering capacitors. If this was at a couple hundred millivolts or more, about 200 to 300 millivolts is when you can actually start causing damage to your components, namely your bass speaker here. But our test results here are looking fantastic. So all this bad boy needed was a new diode and it's ready to rock. So let's get that put back together. And we'll move on to our second HomePod. Cheers. That's good stuff. reconnect that ribbon cable down there. Power supply. Very good. Plastic rings. Let's get this extra glue taken off here. We don't want it messing with how that basket sits nice and flush. Subwoofer. Basket. logic board. Logic board frame. There we go. Display. Got some adhesive covering some of the volume buttons there, so let's clear that up so they light up nice and even when we put the top cover back on. That'll do. Alright, we've got our first HomePod fixed up and fully put back together. Let's do some quick sanity checks. Make sure it's all good to go. Got our power here again. Plug that in. And drum roll, please. Yeah, it's working. Cheers.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
Very good. And
I'm having trouble.
Looks like there's a little bit of crud under that volume up button there.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
She's gonna complain a few times while we take this back off. That's all right.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info.
I'm sure you are. You are far from home, little guy.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
All right. What's going on here? Oh, I see it. Just a tiny little speck on there. That's all it takes. There we go. Let's put that back on.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
Siri's about to get baked. You notice how even after taking this off and putting it back on, because we use the heat to soften up that adhesive again, it sticks back on there rather well. Don't use too much heat because you can easily damage your plastics and your mesh here. That's why I hold this when I'm doing it, because if it's too hot for me to hold, it's probably fast approaching too hot for the plastic too. And
there's a problem with the Wi-Fi. For more info.
She's gonna complain a few more times. Oh, that's okay.
I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Look in the Home app for more information.
Alright, how does that look?
I'm having...
Oh yeah, nice and clean. They both light up nice and evenly now. So this one's ready to go. Let's get that unplugged and set it to the side. And we will break out HomePod number 2 from David. No packing peanuts. That's okay. I'd be lying if I said that I've never used packing peanuts on a couple of HomePods myself. I just use what I got. Here we go. Let's get our text status updated here. And there we go. So, same as before with Myoung's HomePod. Let's go ahead and double check our symptoms here. David said it's got no power, so let's find out. Yes, indeed, no response. And exactly the same power draw as the last one. at about 4 watts, so most likely we've got the exact same issue going on here as most others with a shorted diode on the amplifier. Let's crack it open and find out. I don't know how you just ram the spudger under the top cover without scratching it. I've done it twice now and scratched it a little. That's what Cameron just said. So it does take a little bit of practice and just getting more familiar with it to really perfect this. But usually the best advice I can give for this is to try to insert the tool. Here, I'll flip this to the side so maybe you can see a little easier. But when I'm going in, and you can actually see, I've actually put a little, on purpose, I put a little bend in my spudger here. So it's not like perfectly flat, it's actually angled a little bit. And so what I do is I put the spudger in there, but I try to put it in at an angle like this. And what that's going to do is that's going to make sure that you get under the right layer first of all. And then also the other key part here to avoid scratching it is to make sure when you're putting it in here like this, you don't put it in at an angle like that or that. You want this to be not rotated to the left or the right. You want this to be level with the top. And again, it does take a fair bit of practice with the metal tool to do this enough times without scratching it. But like I was saying earlier, other people have used credit cards, other plastic tools, or even fishing liner or dental floss to remove this top as well. But personally, I find this tool to be the easiest and most reliable and most consistent. It does take a little bit of practice though to get it perfect. That said, you can put a fair bit of scratching under these before the scratches actually show through the other side. So they are a little forgiving. I also had somebody suggest, for the white tops at least, if you do scratch through the top, you can put a little bit of white out on there, and that tends to hide the scratches pretty well. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the whole dental floss method. I've never tried it myself. Other people have said they've done it and that's their way to do it. But I imagine it's not very easy. Just takes time and practice. What's my comment strictness at? Okay. Stupid spam bots. YouTube needs to do something about that because they are single-handedly ruining the YouTube experience. And it's like, literally nobody's gonna click your spam garbage, bro. Why do you even bother wasting your time? All you're doing is setting yourself up for a target to be a target for pissing off the wrong guy, and then they decide to go all vigilante on you. And don't be a spammer. All right. Base. I do appreciate that the spam bots think that my channel is worth their time with their spam. I take it as a compliment. It means we're getting somewhere. Maybe it's Apple trying to spam me off of YouTube and get me to stop fixing HomePods. No, it's not. That's not it. Please don't sue me for saying that, Apple. Time for the pry. Oh yeah, that's coming up nice. Very nice. Oh yeah. Well, goodbye guys. See you in a minute. I need to get a better mount for my phone or something. There we go. Let's see if that'll come off now. Yes, indeed. Time for the subwoofer. Out she goes. Let's do a quick woofer check. Voice coil looks good. Feels nice and smooth. And it smells nice and fresh. So that is a happy woofer. Hey Mars, welcome to the chat. How's it going? think my volume's a bit low? Well, it might be. Let me see. Yep. The gain on my microphone was turned down quite a bit, so that should be a little better. Thank you for saying something. Really appreciate it. Sometimes I go and I turn the gain down on my microphone when we're doing sound tests on the HomePod, so it doesn't immediately blast people with full volume music, because obviously the speaker's right next to the microphone right here. And then I forget to turn the gain back up. Really, I should be using the volume control in OBS, so that way I have more of an obvious visual indicator when I forget to put it back, but no biggie. Alright, amplifier board number 2 has been removed. Quick visual inspection, and then we'll do some diagnosis here. Everything looks good on that side, and everything looks good on the other side. So let's grab our multimeter here. Continuity test mode. Get you guys up close. There we go. And then we're going to stick one probe on the bottom, and then we're going to probe each of those tiny pins on the top. Oh ho ho! Oh. Interesting results here. Are my leads given up? Ah, see, this is why you check. This is why you test with your probes themselves when you stick your meter on. It's inconsistent here. My meter's a little goofy. There we go. Sending you guys on a ride today, jeez. Alright, let's test this again. Yeah, there we go. That diode is certainly shorted out, so let's get it replaced with a new one. So Cameron says, I don't know if you have a different kind of a multimeter, but mine shows a short even on working diodes. I'm using the diode test mode, and if it shows like 0.001, it means it's shorted broken. Let's go ahead and test a good and a bad diode after we get this one pulled off real quick. This was the cheapest multimeter I could find on eBay that specifically came. I was looking for a multimeter that also had a built-in capacitance test because I needed to start finding out the values of capacitors as I pull them off. But this, granted, it's still the cheapest otherwise multimeter that I could find. So let's see here. So I've got 2 piles of diodes here on my mat. I've got the used diodes that we've pulled off boards when we replaced them, and then we've got the known dead ones. So let's grab one of the used ones, and let's grab our dead one, and let's do some quick checks. So again, our multimeter is showing good continuity between its 2 probes with just 1 ohm there. And then let's test the bad one. The bad one shows the same test result. And then the good one doesn't show anything. And that's what I expect. So I don't know what's going on with your meter there. Not sure what that really means. But there's no way that I can get the good diode to show any sort of continuity through itself. So that's interesting. What model of multimeter do you have? I'm curious, because I want to look it up here in a bit. Let's get a new diode out. And for posterity here, let's go ahead and test a brand new unused diode as well. Yeah, absolutely no reading on the meter here with a good brand new one. And our meter is still working. So yeah, that is strange. I wonder if your diode test mode on your multimeter is different than my continuity test mode. Although, to be fair, the marking on my meter here does show the diode symbol. So I would presume this is I'm using the same diode test mode as you are on your meter. That is interesting. If you were curious, my multimeter is the ANENG. I don't know how you pronounce that. ANENG. The model number DT-9205A. It's working pretty well for what I needed it, and it was the cheapest one that I could find on eBay that had a capacitor test built into it too. All the other ones that I could find that were relatively cheap were not, did not come with the capacitance test. Not sure if I would necessarily recommend this multimeter to others. After a fair bit of use, the dial here seems to have gotten a little dirty because sometimes I've got to select the mode that I want a few times until it actually goes into the mode that I want. But for how much I paid for it, it's held up pretty well. Here we go. That's all there is to it. Okay. Let's air cool this for just a sec here, and then we will give it a quick power test and check it for any DC voltage as well, going out onto the subwoofer. Oh, Cameron, are you testing your diodes on the board? Because I do get a bit of a reading with the diode installed on the board. But of course, if the diode is good, nonetheless, it's not going to show a flat-out short with it on the board. So, that is curious. Oh, Cameron also asked, what do I do for a living? So this whole repair thing that I do here is totally just on the side. It's more of a hobby than a living. I'm actually a sales engineer for a local software company. Basically what that entails is I support our sales team with a whole wide range of things. Anything from demoing and installing our software to troubleshooting or diagnosing issues with our software, to integrating and testing new hardware for our software. And I've been working at the same company for the past 10 years now, and I really like it there. Some weeks are tougher than others, and I'm sure I've got some mental issues that probably contribute to how I feel at any given week at that place, but overall I'm quite happy with working there. Obviously I've been there for 10 years now, so I don't plan on leaving there anytime soon. That said, Apple, if you're out there and you want to hire me, I'll take it. You gotta let me keep fixing HomePods though. I won't stop that. That's my only stipulation. On and off the board. Yeah, interesting. I almost wonder if the diode, the replacement diode you got is also bad. Unless you know that it's good and it's working, in which case I really don't know what to make of that. Have I tried applying at Apple? I have not. Not sure if they would actually hire me because I have absolutely zero formal education. I actually dropped out of high school junior year, got my GED. I've not taken any college or engineering courses. I'm pretty much entirely self-taught. So, I'm not sure if Apple's looking for people like that. But it never hurts to try. Apple certainly does not repair these. What they do with the broken units that get sent into them is they send them. I don't know if they do any diagnosis for the broken ones they get, but I do know that with all the broken ones that they get back, they end up all going to Daisy. And Daisy's a purpose-built machine specifically made to disassemble your old electronics and break them down into their raw recyclable materials. So every broken HomePod that gets sent into Apple ultimately meets Daisy. Whether or not they diagnose them on the way to Daisy, I don't know. It would behoove them to at least diagnose the broken ones so they've got an idea of what the heck is going on, to maybe come back with a redesign that lasts a little better. But yeah, Apple certainly does not do any repairs. At the end of the day, they all get torn down to their raw materials. That's true. Most companies have stopped looking for degrees, and I like that, because an 8-year degree is not the same thing as 8 years of actual real-world work experience. And vice versa, 8 years of real-world working experience is certainly not 8 years of a college degree either. There are certainly things that I'm missing out on that I could get out of college or some other formal education. Yeah, and they charge $275 to send you another one that's just going to break the same way in a few months to a year or so. Sad. I am just under 30 years old. Have I come across the HomePod popping noise? Of course I have. Of course I have. I actually have a dedicated section on my website, nixfix.com, that covers the popping issue. The small popping sound, yeah, it's normal. It's normal and it's totally okay, at least to my understanding, for the HomePods to make a quiet popping sound. It'll happen about every 10 minutes or so. After inactivity, the HomePod will go into a low power state where it turns off power to the amplifier, in which case you'll hear a tiny little pop, and then again, if you do anything to wake the HomePod back up, it turns the amplifier back on, and then you hear a popping sound again. The severity of that pop is what matters, as well as I can't talk and work at the same time. Hold on. The severity of the popping and whether or not it's accompanied with other issues is what really matters. My theory as to why, even with a whole fresh set of parts, they'll still have the subtle popping sound, is there's probably a slight delay in the filtering capacitors removing the DC voltage from the subwoofer. So you end up hearing that subtle little pop sound as it wakes up or goes to sleep during that little microsecond of a delay there. I don't fix HomePods if all they do is just the quiet tiny little pop. It's got to have other issues. Yeah, no worries. If all it does is just a really quiet pop, like I said, about every 10 minutes as it goes in and out of standby, that is fine. That's good and dandy. I wouldn't even be worried about it. Out of the few dozen that I have around my house, probably 3/4 of them do the same quiet popping sound, and they don't have any issues otherwise. I've taken some of them apart and tried to diagnose it, and that was ultimately the conclusion I came to, was there's no obvious hardware issues. It's just a bit of a delay in removing that DC offset. What does happen over time regardless of whether you've got the subtle popping or not, is those filtering capacitors tend to lose their effectiveness at filtering unwanted DC voltage from the woofer. And so what'll happen is they'll continue to pump DC voltage into the subwoofer and cook the subwoofer out. And if it gets that bad, the popping sound that they do is much louder. You'll also tend to get death farts with that too. But a quick tiny little DC voltage spike of 50-ish millivolts when they wake up or go to sleep, that's not going to do any harm to the speaker or the amplifier or anything. It's only when that DC offset grows past 200 to 300 millivolts of DC that it starts damaging the subwoofer. And in those cases, like I said, the popping gets much more noticeable, much louder. And more often than not, you get death farts along with it, or frequent crackling in the bass. Story time. So, long before I had gotten into repairing HomePods, I was still looking for a way to get my hands on a couple more of them on the cheap. And I went to Shop Goodwill's auction website, and I found a listing for 2 HomePods with their boxes, still under warranty, for not that much. I think I ended up winning the auction for like $150, $200 or something like that. When I got them, they worked just fine, but I noticed the subtle popping every 10 or so minutes when they go in and out of standby mode. At the time, I didn't, nobody really understood truly these issues, so I assumed it was an imminent hardware failure. So I reached out to Apple, and because they were still under warranty, I was able to get them to replace both of them completely free. And when they sent me back 2 refurbished HomePods, quote-unquote refurbished, whatever that means, I got 2 factory-sealed HomePods in their original boxes from Apple, and as soon as I opened them up and I plugged them in and I set them up, I got the exact same subtle popping sound as they go in and out of standby. And I was like, what the heck? What's the dealio? And that's kind of part of what kickstarted my whole HomePod repair adventures into figuring out exactly what was going on here. So moral of the story really is, well, a few things. Apple's going to send you what they got whether it's working or not. And I presume the subtle popping sound is harmless and to be expected. along with obviously all the things that we've worked on since then, taking them apart, fixing them, various diagnoses, basically arriving at that conclusion. So yeah, fresh out of the box, you can get yourself a HomePod that has the same exact subtle popping sound with absolutely zero previous use. If they just change them so that they never go into standby mode, they just never shut the power to the amplifier off, you'd probably never hear the popping ever again. And they would probably behave the same as any other amplified speaker. Patrick asked, did Apple discontinue this style because of all these issues? I'm not a fan of the baseball speaker, but I'm sure it's simpler to build and cheaper. It's hard to say. Obviously none of us here have that sort of insight at Apple to really know why they discontinued it. But we can theorize. We can take our guesses. And my guess, personally, is yes. They knew about most of these hardware issues. Obviously, they probably didn't know about any of the hardware issues when they first launched them. But I'm willing to bet you, over time, they started seeing all these various hardware issues pop up. Basically recognized that it is an inherent design flaw and that majority, if not all, HomePods are going to experience one, if not multiple hardware failures after a year or so. And they were like, nah, we got to discontinue this, pull the plug now, sweep it all under the rug now before they pick up too much speed and wind and people start really getting angry at them and force them to do some sort of recall program. But that's just my crazy conspiracy theory. It's entirely likely and possible that, rather, they just did not sell as many as they had hoped and discontinued them as a result. But yes, the HomePod Mini is certainly much cheaper and easier to manufacture than the original larger units. You also have to remember, each HomePod costed Apple themselves, I think somewhere between $200 to $250 per unit to manufacture. So these were very expensive for them to make. And then they got to try to make that money back. And most people thought they were out of their minds to try to charge as much as they did for them. If you hop onto Google and you search Apple HomePod cost or something like that, you'll find the Tech Insights article with the component breakdown of the HomePod, and they take a really good guess at about how much each unit costs to manufacture. And it's ridiculous. It's expensive. But you also have to consider objectively the kind of hardware that they'd packed into this speaker. You've essentially got an iPhone crammed in there, in addition to an audio amplifier, a subwoofer, 7 tweeters, and a built-in power supply. So, all things considered, it's a damn good speaker. And I'm surprised that they sold it for as little as they did, really. But that said, they could have done better. As they say, though, hindsight is 20/20, and without that insider insight from from an Apple employee themselves, we're all just taking our guesses here. But until Apple comes out and says it themselves, the best guess wins. Got a few comments to catch up on here. I think it's probably like the perfect storm of things. They didn't sell as many as they wanted to. They have an insanely high cost to manufacture with low returns. And then in addition, they've got numerous inevitable hardware failures. So they were like, nah, let's just pull the plug now. Diodes and capacitors in 95% of these cases, spot on. Oh no, we forgot one of the drawstring screws. That's what I get for talking and working at the same time. That's no big deal. Give us just another minute and we'll be back up to speed. Man, I was really hoping that they were going to announce, or at least talk about the possibility, or like a future release of a new HomePod these past few events recently, but they did not. They did not. There we go. Man, that would be sweet if they just made just a straight up dedicated AirPlay subwoofer. I'd buy a few of those. My hot air station is off. You might be hearing my PC fan. I'm actually using it in a small form factor Intel NUC to stream, and the poor thing's got like its CPU is like dang near maxed out right now, so it's got to have the fans kicked up. I tried to put the streaming PC as far away from the microphone as possible, but unfortunately, especially with the gain turned up on my microphone, you're almost certain to hear it. I need to upgrade my stream setup here so it's quieter. I think I'm going to do that here today. I'll probably tear down my setup here and try to move things around and maybe get a desktop put in the NUC's place so we got a little quieter operation going on. But if I didn't have all the background noise, then you'd hear all my body noises. And I'm not sure which people prefer more. Hey Robin, welcome to the chat. And talking of background noises, get out of here. So my hot air station has an auto off feature. As soon as I put the hot air station back onto the bench, into its mount, it goes through a cool down cycle and then it turns off. So it should be turning off here right about now. So my hot air station just turned off from its auto off feature. And if you're still hearing anything, that's probably my streaming PC's fan. You can use directional microphone. It'll pick up in quite a narrow angle. You'd have to point it towards you. I think that would solve the fan's problem. All right, let's try this. So, all right. Actually, I don't want to change the mode on my microphone because every time I do it, it emits some pretty nasty sounds. So I'm just going to have to play with that after the stream here and see which setting works best. Thank you for the suggestion, Mars. As usual, your suggestions are always pretty helpful. All right, we've got our power cable here. Let's give it a test. Drum roll, please. Yeah, 2 for 2. Let's let this boot up and then we'll check it for good sound and lit up volume buttons nice and even. And
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
beautiful.
I'm having trouble.
And awesome. Everything checks out for David's HomePod here. Let's set that to the side. And let's move on to Patrick's HomePods now. Patrick sent in 2 HomePods. Let's get that text fixed up there. Very nice. Here we go. HomePod number 1 of 2 from Patrick. Let's yeet that power cable. Oh, come on. I'm starting to notice more and more of these thicker than usual power cables. It's interesting. All right. Stay clean. All right. So, if Patrick here isn't a dirty liar, wink wink, we should expect to see nothing happen when we plug these into that power. Yes, indeed. And what do we got for a power draw here? We've got 6 watts, 5 watts. So we do have a significant power draw, which leads me to believe that we do have the same short on the amplifier. But let's crack it open and find out. I joke about it, but so far, every time somebody's told me what's wrong with their HomePod and then they've sent it in, so far everybody's described the symptoms correctly. But I always double check just to make sure, because you never know what one person may consider no power, another person considers, yo, that power's on, it's got blinking volume buttons, bro. I've had that. I've stopped a few people from sending in HomePods for repair from that though, because they'll leave a YouTube comment saying, hey, can you fix my HomePod, it's got no power, and I tell them to shoot me an email, and when I dig in a little further, turns out, lo and behold, it does actually power on, but they've got the blinkies. And unfortunately, I can't fix the blinking volume buttons issue, so, well, okay, that's a lie. Technically, you can fix the blinking volume buttons issue, but the fix for that is to just replace the logic board outright. And because there's no way to repair those logic boards that are bricked, there's no economical way for me to, stack up on good working logic boards to offer repairs for them. I'd have to charge so much money to offer repairs for blinking volume buttons that people would honestly just be better off buying another HomePod. It sucks. I wish I could. I wish we had a fix for that. And I'm not giving up hope. I'm sure somebody with a big brain out there will figure it out and save us all. There's got to be a way. There's always a way. That's actually why I charge extra for the no bass repairs. If they need a new subwoofer, if the subwoofer's completely toast, I have to charge a little more, because again, you can't just fix the subwoofer if the subwoofer's broken. You have to replace it outright. And because of that, I can't take the broken old ones and fix them up and have stock of those. So I gotta charge a little extra in that case. But I do tend to get more good subwoofers than I do good logic boards. So that's why I can still, for now at least, offer no bass repairs in the event the subwoofer's toast. It's a mad world we live in. I'm sure someone out there could refurbish these woofers here. My problem with being able to refurbish these is, at least to me, there doesn't seem to be a great way to actually do that. There's probably a kit that you could use to replace the rubber here, because obviously this rubber is glued onto this metal basket. So trying to take it off, you're going to destroy this rubber, guaranteed. And then your next obstacle is the spider right in here for your voice coil. That is also glued into place to the metal basket. So you're going to need to basically destroy half of the parts just to get to the actual voice coil that's actually fried inside of there. Once you get that far, I'm sure you could refurbish it and build it back up. But I'd be curious if anybody else out there has ever tried refurbishing these. I would be very interested in that, because I've got a stack. I've probably got 12 or 14 of these dead subwoofers sitting on the shelf waiting for me to figure that out or find somebody that does it. And when that day comes, I'll be very happy, because that's one more part that we can fix without having to outright replace. We got a bunch of comments here. Let's see if we can catch up. Let's see. in Serbia. These things are not popular. I put an ad buying broken HomePods several days ago. No one responded. Sad. Just be patient. I'm sure people will start coming out of the woodworks, and they'll be clamoring to you to buy their broken shit. Keep putting the word out. Don't just make a single ad and wait for people to come to you. You got to find them. Go on Reddit, go on Facebook, go on Craigslist if you've got it. Your local classifieds forums. Just put the word out as much as you can, as often as you can. And if you keep it up, eventually they'll just organically come to you all by themselves. Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if there is a company out there that just is in the business of refurbishing speakers. I almost forgot about my coffee. Cheers. Wow, we got people from all over the world in here today. One of your HomePods is stuck on OS 15.5.1. What I would suggest, and this is what I do for most of the HomePods that I test after repairs, get yourself an old iPhone on an older OS, like iOS 15, 14, maybe even 13. This one's actually on iOS 11 still. Get yourself an iPhone dedicated just to this, and set up a brand new fresh Apple ID for this phone. And that way, when you go into your home app, you've got nothing in there yet. Factory reset your HomePod and then pair it with your fresh iPhone and fresh iPhone account. Give it a day or two to configure and settle down, and then check for updates and try to install the update. 10 times out of 10, anytime I've had an issue trying to update a HomePod, that's fixed it. I think it has something to do with just the home app and the HomePods not being happy with its current configuration for whatever reason. Something to do with it being associated with the Apple ID. You set it up with a different one and it gets it unstuck. That's funny. I definitely see more than 3 people in the chat, but YouTube thinks I've only got 3 people watching. Time for the pry. Oh boy, these ones are gonna put up a fight, aren't they? Patrick, what did you give me? Oh yeah. It's a fighter. That sucker's glued in there. sucker. There we go. There we go. It's still putting up a fair fight. Give it up. I think we got it. Let's see here. Excuse me. Wow. Uncalled for. We're gonna have to do an off the table pry here. This one's gonna get a little intense. Oh, goodness. Ah, we got him. We got him, boys. Hey, have a good one, Robin. Thanks for dropping by. I've noticed that all three of my OG HomePods are kind of hot on the top. Is this normal? Yes, it is. Just because you're not actively using your HomePod doesn't mean it's not doing stuff in the background. I pointed my thermal camera at one of my HomePods the other day after not having used it for pretty much like 14 or 16 hours. Never woke it up in that time. It's been in idle that entire duration. And my thermal camera said that the HomePod's top was at 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which is well within the operating temperature. They can get pretty hot and still work just fine. They're made for it. One in the morning. Geez, go get some sleep, Mars. Thanks for dropping by. Woofer smells good, feels good, looks good. Happy subwoofer. Happy little speaker. Are the bad diodes consistent with similar date codes? Yes, they are. For some reason or another, every single diode that we found shorted has had a date code of 1748K or 1746K. That said, regardless of what a HomePod comes in for, be it no power or no base or anything else, we replace that diode, no matter what date code it's got on it. Just because we're not, correlation isn't always causation. There could be a perfectly logical reason as to why we see those date codes on those diodes fail the most. It could just simply be that they used more of those diodes with that date code than any of the other ones. Or another simple explanation for it could actually be that there was a bad batch of those diodes in the 1746 to 1748K range. It's one of those things that I think the only person who's really going to know is someone at Apple. And I doubt that they're going to come out and say anything anytime soon, if ever. Good night, Cameron. Get some good sleep. Thanks for dropping by. This one's putting up a fight every single step of the way. These screws are really glued in there. I'm having flashbacks to that time. We had one of those HomePods in for repair, and one of the screws ended up breaking, so we had to replace the whole stud in the amplifier board. But nothing will stop us. Excuse me. Like a timer went off. It's really strange. And it's even stranger that you're not the only person who said this. There have been a couple others who report the same thing, whereas like as soon as a software update finished, like within a day or two, they fried themselves. No power. And lo and behold, they had the same shorted diode, same date code on them even. But without actually knowing for certain what this diode's role is in the circuit, we'd have to basically reverse engineer this whole board in order to know what that diode is doing. Honestly, I'm not smart enough to really look at it and know like some of the other guys are. But I wonder if this diode has something to do with power delivery to the logic board, and during a software update, after the update, the logic board is going through and like trying to rebuild its like local cache or something, and it gets stuck in some sort of like super high load, high power draw when it's doing that, and it overloads this diode and shorts it out. Just a theory though, just a complete uneducated theory. Alright. Let's see if this diode is bad. Yes, it is. That's a bad diode. Naughty. Let's get it replaced. And lo and behold, it's got a date code of 1746K. And it looks pretty, you can tell too, like a lot of these ones that short out, they've got a bit of a hot spot on them, like they were overheated. It could just be from when they short out, and once they're shorted out, they just overheat the shit out of themselves. Or it could be a sign of its events leading up to its failure. I need to go to college, take some electrical engineering classes, get a deeper understanding of what's going on here. Oh, let's get a new diode. Starting to run low, gonna need to order more. Bullocks. Don't need to be perfect. The flow of solder will do the perfect work for us. All right. Not all right. Got a fairly healthy sized blob on the top pin there. I want to clean that up. That's a little better. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. Cool. Okay. Let's test this board. See if it powers on, see if it's got any DC offset, and then we can put it back together. All right, time to test. I hear the happy squeals from those capacitors. Yeah, we've got power. How much offset do we got? Oh, lovely. Only about 1 to 2 millivolts of DC offset on this board. That is an excellent result. So this one is all happy, hunky-dory, ready to go. Let's get it put back into its HomePod. And then we can move on to the second one there. And in case you missed it on my website, all of my repairs come with a what I call 6+ month warranty. So what that pretty much means is if any of my parts or labor fails within the first 6 months, I will cover shipping both ways and get it fixed back up for you completely free of charge. After those 6 months, it depends on exactly what it is that's happening again. In most cases, if you cover shipping, I'll do the repairs completely for free. it does depend. I after 6 months, I'll handle every case, on a case by case basis. That said, we're just about a year into doing these repairs for people. We've almost fixed like 250 to 300 HomePods now, and we haven't had to have a single warranty replacement or a warranty repair come in. There have been a few special exceptions, but those have actually been like when we send them back to the person, they got damaged in transit, and well, I just ate the cost there. I sent it. I had them ship it back, and I replaced the broken parts again. But those special instances aside, we've so far got a perfect track record. And I'm not expecting it to stay like that forever. Everybody makes mistakes. Things happen whether they're in your control or not. But I think that is a pretty fair warranty policy. Really, though, once you've already taken it apart once, most of the hard work's already been done, and the amount of time that it would take to reopen it gets significantly cut down. So that's why I can be pretty generous with warranty work. Blessing in disguise. Bloop. Let's see if this will sit nice. Beautiful. Okay. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Here we go. I needed to hop into a work meeting here. I've got my AirPods in. If I temporarily mute the microphone on the stream here, it's because I've got something to say in the meeting, but I shouldn't, they shouldn't need to bug me for anything here. I just need to listen in on it. We're juggling jobs. This meeting they always hold like really late because half of the members of the team for this meeting work on the other side of the globe. So they're just about getting up and waking up now. And we're just about ready for dinner. Somebody said everything's on fire. That's funny. Everything's always on fire. This is fine. Get in there. Yes. Happy anniversary. almost like I told you guys there were issues on iOS 16 and we should have tested it ahead of time. The beta's only been out for months. Nah, I'm just giving him a hard time. Alright, time for a test. Drum roll, please. Yeah. It is like 8 p.m. his time, so I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a handful of these.
having trouble connecting to the internet. I'm having trouble.
Sorry about that. Well, you know I'm here, so I've got something to say. I've just got two questions or things to bring up. The first one, do we have like an estimated time on when we'll get our hands on a test build of mobile encoder for Android that gives us logs that we can give to the dev team? I think so. I'm not sure. So this is mainly for like the USB OTG like testing. Paul was itching pretty hard about being able to start testing that, but I think he's pretty blocked on some crashing issues. And I think, as far as I was aware, the mobile team was pretty much waiting on making a build that gives them logs in order to troubleshoot that further. That's what I thought. Hey Josh, do you have access to our shared drive? Like the Z drive with like all the storage space that everybody like shares files with? Okay. Just curious. Okay, and then my other question was, I was trying with both iOS and Android, and more often than not, we couldn't get drone mode working, so I opened up a couple of bugs for those. Do we have any idea if and or when anybody can take a look at those? Because as far as I'm aware, we don't have either a test or App Store release version of anything that actually gives you working drone mode anymore. Yeah, so you know the like the drone integration, right? With mobile encoder. So it doesn't matter what version, be it the latest test or App Store release versions, whether iOS or Android, but I pretty much had no luck getting any successful drone video, and it's been causing some issues with a handful of demos. And I opened up a couple bugs for it, but I think actually Zach might have bumped the priority up on those. Okay. Okay. That's fine. I just want to... Sorry, go ahead. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you, guys. I'm not happy, Bob. All right, meeting is over. Meeting is adjourned. They aren't fixing my bugs that I'm opening because they don't have the hardware to test it. I'm gonna need to fly a drone over to Taiwan so they can get them fixed. Time for the prom. Is this one going to be just as difficult to open up? Yeah, it seems so. Well, that would make sense, because he probably bought them around the same time, at the same place. So they probably came from the same manufacturing run, with the same excessive amount of glue. Actually, that seems like it might have come up easier than I thought. Yes! Yes, sirree! Voice coil looks good, feels nice and smooth, and it smells excellent. That is a happy subwoofer. Amplifier is out. Quick visual inspection here. Our power dial there looks pretty roasty with a date code of 1748K. Everything else looks alright though. So let's double check that diode on there. It's probably shorted out. Yep, that diode is bad. Let's replace it. I almost forgot to bring you guys with me. There we go. Into the pile. Out with a new one. right. Let's let this cool off for just a second, and then we'll see if it powers on, and if so, with any DC voltage being put into the woofer. All right, time for the test. Right on, 4 for 4. We got them all powering on. Let's let this boot up and we'll check it for any DC offset. What do we got? Beautiful. About 3 to 5 millivolts of DC offset. Again, a perfectly good result. Anything below 50 millivolts is what makes me happy. Anything above 50 millivolts is when we start thinking about replacing those filtering capacitors. Anything more than 200 or 300 millivolts is when you can start causing damage. So we are well within specification there. This is ready to be put back together. And then we'll be all done for the day. folks. Final HomePod, final test. Let's see what we've got. Drum roll, please. Booyah. We'll wait for it to boot up and we'll check it for the usual. Make sure it's all in good working order.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Beautiful.
I'm having trouble.
And 10 out of 10. 4 out of 4 fixed up today. All 4 of them had the same shorted Schottky barrier diode on the amplifier. No DC offset to be seen anywhere. No surprises. And we got them all fixed up without a problem. If any of you guys have any questions on any of the repairs that we've done here today or anything in general, feel free to leave a comment below. I also suggest if you do your own HomePod repairs to check out my website, nixfix.com. I've got a section dedicated to all of the common issues for Apple HomePods, and each issue will have known ways to diagnose it, how to repair it, and the exact part numbers that I use to do those repairs. I hope you all enjoyed today's live stream repair, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye!